those videos back from Dragon and from the space station pretty shortly. But we are tracking to arrive at waypoint 1. Again, we're passing right through waypoint 1 today. We didn't have the need to stop. Both teams polled that they are go to pass through and head to waypoint 2. But we're expecting to see or hear that call out of waypoint 1 in just a couple of minutes. Again, we're tracking.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly, and then expect Dragon to continue approach to waypoint 2.
SpaceX, Dragon, copies all.
All right. Right on time. We are again expecting waypoint 1 arrival in just a couple of minutes. Docking could happen as soon as 10 minutes from now. Also heard the call to the crew that the soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. That's the first step in docking. We have soft capture, and this ring will retract, pulling Dragon into the International Space Station, that international docking adapter. And then there are a set of 12 hooks that will securely attach Dragon to the docking adapter. That's what we call hard capture. After that, we'll get into our depressurization of the vestibule.
Also, a part of docking is where the Dragon spacecraft will actually connect an umbilical, set of umbilicals, to the space station, basically provide power to Dragon while it's on the International Space Station.
So again, as we get closer to docking, if you are just joining us, this is NASA's SpaceX Crew 7 mission to the International Space Station. We have 4 members aboard Endurance today: Jasmine Mobelli, Andreas Mogensen, Konstantin Borisov, and Satoshi Furukawa. They are scheduled for about 10 minutes from now to arrive at the International Space Station, reaching waypoint 1 here, about 220 meters directly above their docking port. So we hear those Quindar tones. We like to pause to make sure that we can hear the real stars of the show. The teams in our mission control rooms talk with the crew members aboard the spacecraft.
We did expect to pass through waypoint 1 at 5:59 a.m. Pacific time. So that may be why they may be trying to establish comms here. We'll see if we can get an update here shortly.
Yeah, that's our crew. That's Crew 7. They will be arriving here just within the next 10 minutes, potentially. We have on the left, from the left, Jasmine Mobelli, NASA astronaut and the commander of Crew 7. To her right, pilot Andreas Mogensen. Next to him is Satoshi Furukawa, JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut. And on the far right, Konstantin Borisov of Roscosmos.
Station, Houston on the big loop.
Houston Station with you on the big loop.
Okay, Woody, we're ready for you to monitor approach per step 3 of 1.102, Dragon approach and retreat monitoring. Let us know when your review is complete and you are ready for docking.
Amy, I copy. Monitor approach per step 3. Review of steps 5 and 6 is complete, and ISS is ready for docking. Welcome, Crew 7.
Excellent. And for your awareness, at waypoint 2, Dragon will briefly pause to align for docking and then automatically resume approach.
Mission copies.
All right, and that was communication from the Capcom in Mission Control Houston. It's Amy Dill this morning communicating with NASA astronaut Woody Hoburg on the International Space Station. Again, he's primed for monitoring this approach and docking of Dragon. So they are getting all set up on the space station side ahead of docking. Again, we're looking for that to happen around 6:08 a.m. Pacific time, so within the next few minutes.
Yeah, it's getting pretty exciting. Initial contact between Dragon and the International Space Station is expected, as Leah said, at 6:08 a.m. Pacific time, 9:08 a.m. Eastern time. Before reaching Waypoint 1, mission operators conducted a go-no-go poll to allow Dragon to begin its approach to Waypoint 2, which is located inside of the keep-out sphere, about 20 meters away from the space station.
As we've talked about previously, all of these visiting vehicles take this phased approach to the space station. They stop at these predetermined gates for teams to run quick checks on the vehicle performance before approaching the space station. So we know slow and steady wins the race when it comes to bringing two spacecraft together. The docking operations require a really great deal of precision to make sure we're keeping the spacecraft and obviously the crew safe.
At the 20-meter distance from station's docking adapter, Dragon's approach will slow, and it will begin to align itself with the adapter to come in for the final approach.
Dragon will make its first initial soft contact with the adapter's soft capture ring, which will then retract to bring Dragon in for the hard capture sequence. As a further precaution, Dragon's soft capture system includes a set of rotary spring dampers that helps lessen the force of the contact between the capsule and the station. So for a little bit more of an update on what's happening on the International Space Station and in Houston, let's check in with Sandra Jones. Sandra?
Thanks, Leah. Right now, the crew on board Space Station is awake and preparing for the upcoming docking of Dragon to Space Station. Everything continuing to look good here on the Space Station side. NASA
Dragon
astronaut Woody
SpaceX on the
Hoburg
big
will...
loop. Soft capture ring extension is complete.
SpaceX at Dragon copy. Soft capture ring deployed complete.
Good words there up to the crew. So as I was saying, Hoburg will be in the station's cupola using special software to track Dragon's approach and make sure it stays in the expected zones. Hoburg will also be primed for hatch opening operations once Dragon is docked. He'll start by opening the large hatch on node 2 Zenith, which will give him access into the pressurized mating adapter. The crew will then have to pressurize the vestibule, which is the small space between the hatches on Dragon and Space Station.
And
This
Dragon
was exposed to
SpaceX on the big
vacuum
loop.
prior to
Ground
docking.
has pulled go for approach 2. Please confirm visors are down and that you are ready for docking.
SpaceX Dragon copies on the big loop go, and also crew members have visors down. We are ready.
Excellent news, Dragon. Ground is going to be enabling approach shortly, and a reminder that after the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are not permitted.
Dragon copies.
And great calls again up to the crew, letting them know everything is going smoothly. We're getting really close to docking, just confirming that they have their visors down and they can be in that configuration ahead of docking. So everything good here from the space station side. I'll toss it back over to Hawthorne so that you guys can give us an update on your end.
Thanks, Sandra. And we did hear the Corps also call out that CHOP, which is the crew hands-off point. Basically, that means that the crew must be hands-off. In case of any aborts that happen during that time, it will be done by Dragon. Now, Waypoint 2 is up next, and that will put Dragon only 20 meters away from the space station. From here, the spacecraft will focus on aligning its docking system with the International Docking Adapter.
Yeah, so we're getting pretty close. Right now, it looks like we are about 80 meters from the International Space Station. Again, we did not stop at waypoint 1 today. We just kept on moving through that 220-meter mark. We will hold briefly at waypoint 2. That just gives us a chance to do any final checks, make sure everybody's go before moving in for docking. Additionally, we heard previously that the soft capture ring is extended. That's what's going to make first contact with the International Space Station. It will then pull Dragon into the International Space Station's international docking adapter before those 12 hooks begin to do that hard capture sequence, really securely securing it to the spacecraft.
And we are expecting initial contact between Dragon and the International Space Station any minute now.
Yeah, we are now 60 meters away from the space station. Again, this is really methodical. It's a very careful process as we prepare for docking, just to ensure the safety of the spacecraft. Like we mentioned, of course, the crew. And again, we do not have views from the International Space Station at this time, but we have good confirmation that Dragon is on the docking axis, continues to move in as planned. Sometimes we don't have these views as we are moving from satellite to satellite in the Tracking Data and Relay Satellite System known as TDRS. Additionally, sometimes we just don't have great views because it's nighttime on the space station. You know, we see sunrise or sunset every 45 minutes. They are in an orbital nighttime at this point. The International Space Station flying 265 statute miles south of Australia. Dragon now 40 meters from the space station, continuing to approach waypoint 2.
And there you can see on your screen, this is a view from Dragon approaching the International Space Station. You can see how close it is. You can begin to see those details on the station. And looking straight ahead in the center of your screen was the International Docking Adapter.
And this view from inside Dragon Endurance itself. So these are our 4 crew members. You can only see the commander and pilot right now, Jasmine Mogbelli and Andreas Mogensen, just monitoring the approach on those crew display panels. Again, they are not making commands at this point. Additionally, at that 2 meters away from the space station, we hear the chop call, at which point they should not send any commands. Right now, we are at 23 meters from the space station, continuing to close in on that zenith port of Node 2. Down toward the bottom of your screen, you can see the nose cone of Dragon Endeavour, which brought the Crew 6 astronauts to the International Space Station. So we're expecting to hear the call for waypoint 2 shortly, where we will do a brief pause before moving in towards the docking port.
Also, a cool thing in this view is Dragon is now directly above the International Space Station. And you can tell in the view because you can see the clouds on Earth in the background.
And it looks like we have reached that 20-meter waypoint 2 mark.
Station, Houston on the Big Loop. Dragon is on final approach and is go for docking. Monitor for steps 5 and 6 in 1.102 Dragon approach and retreat monitoring.
Houston Station copies all.
All right, confirmation from Amy Dill, the Capcom in Mission Control Houston, to the crew that they are moving in for docking. So we are now 16 meters away from the International Space Station. Again, continuing slowly into the Node 2 Zenith port for docking today.
It's such a cool view. It almost feels like we're on Dragon approaching the International Space Station.
Space Station and Dragon now flying over Australia. And Dragon just 13 meters away. Again, a very methodical and careful approach to our docking port. Great views coming from Dragon this morning as we get ready to welcome 4 new crew members to the orbiting laboratory.
Dragon is at 10 meters.
Copy, 10 meters.
And we are just moments away from Dragon docking with the International Space Station. First will be a soft capture, and then there will be 12 hooks deploying 6 at a time to create that hard capture between the vehicle and the station.
Dragon now just 7 meters away, now 6 meters away from the Node 2 port.
5 meters.
Copy, 5.
That call coming from Dragon Commander Jasmine Mogbelli, her first spaceflight to the International Space Station. Standing by for the call of crew hands-off point, or CHOP.
Stop.
Copy, chop.
One meter.
And Dragon, we see soft capture complete, and attenuation will begin shortly.
Dragon copy.
And contact confirmed, 6:16 a.m. Pacific time, 261 statute miles over Australia.
Guys, thank you for the welcome.
And that welcome coming from the crew aboard the International Space Station. Endurance has arrived with its international crew. They will begin the hard capture sequence shortly, but we are now up to 11 crew members on the International Space Station after they float through the hatch this morning.
And on the big loop, ring retraction is in progress.
Dragon copy is in retraction in progress.
Now, again, we don't have views right at this moment of Dragon on the International Space Station, but we did see that docking again at 6:16 a.m. Pacific time as the International Space Station and Dragon were flying 261 statute miles over Australia.
And there's still a few steps to complete before Dragon is securely attached to the station. We've now done the soft capture, but then there will be the completion of the soft capture ring retraction, as well as hard capture sequence beginning, and then finally hard dock completing. And again, that will require 12 hooks to deploy. Again, 6 at a time will deploy to make that hard capture completion.
Of course, once we have a successful hard capture, it still is going to take a little bit before we see our crew members float through the hatch into the International Space Station and officially bring us up to that total of 11, at least for about the next few days or so. We will first pressurize the vestibule. Well, Woody Hoberg will open the station side of the hatch. He will pressurize the vestibule, the space between both of those hatches, the Dragon hatch and the station hatch, bringing that to the same pressure as is inside Dragon and the space station. It's much of what we are used to here on Earth. Eventually, they will bring the crew members aboard. Again, they will give us a welcome ceremony. We'll get to see them and hear their first remarks about their visit to the space station, maybe what the ride was like. Then they will move right into work. They will start their safety briefing with the crew, making sure that they remember all their training from the ground, get brought up to speed on the International Space Station itself. This is Dragon Endurance's third visit to the International Space Station, first on Crew 3, then with Crew 5, now Crew 7. It joins Dragon Endeavour. Both docked to the Node 2 module, also known as Harmony.
And that next step, soft capture ring retraction, is typically expected about 4 minutes after soft capture. So we should...
And Dragon ring retraction is complete. The docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
Dragon copies.
And what perfect timing. Soft capture ring retraction is now complete.
As you mentioned earlier, during this time, we're also connecting an umbilical from Dragon to the station. Dragon has been using power generated by its solar arrays, also battery power. Once it's connected to the International Space Station, it can start using power from the station itself. You got a great view of those solar arrays as we were flying in this morning. And so at this point, Dragon will probably start using the station power for the remainder of its time on the space station over these next 6 months. And again, we do have soft capture complete for Dragon Endurance. We are standing by for the start of the hard capture sequence. This process takes several minutes, but it is the securing of 12 hooks from Dragon to the International Space Station, giving us that firm, secure hold.
MCS configured. Proceeding with hook driving.
And we did hear that call out, proceeding with hook driving. That is the beginning of the hard capture sequence. Again, as Leo was just mentioning, there will be 12 hooks, and they will deploy 6 at a time. So there'll be 6 hooks first. Once those are fully latched to the International Space Station, then the next set of 6 hooks will begin to deploy. And this process should take a few minutes, about 4 minutes or so, until hard docking is complete.
Again, we welcomed Crew 7 to the International Space Station at 6:16 a.m. Pacific time this morning. Here's your view inside Dragon Endurance right now over the shoulder of our commander, Jasmine Mogbelli, and pilot, Andreas Mogensen. It was Mogbelli's first trip to the International Space Station and Mogensen's second. This is also Konstantin Borisov's first trip to the International Space Station. And Satoshi Furukawa is returning as well. So he is the most experienced on this crew when it comes to days in space. I believe he has 165 days from previous missions. This is the view that we saw as we were preparing for docking. It was giving us great views of the docking port itself. Now that we have completed that soft capture, we are obviously pulled into the space station. And those first 6 hooks are driving. We are, again, in the hard capture process right now. So we'll see those first 6 hooks drive, followed by the second 6, at which point they will be considered officially hard docked to the space station. We're getting some good progress on the hooks driving. It looks like the second 6 are now starting to drive. Meanwhile, on the International Space Station, again, it is a Sunday, so it is considered an off-duty day for the crew. The 3 cosmonauts currently on board are eating their midday meal. Meanwhile, Woody Hoberg is monitoring Dragon's docking. He will eventually assist with the pressurization of the vestibule, the hatch openings, and welcoming the crew on board.
And on the big loop, hard capture is complete. Dragon, you are go to raise visors.
Dragon copies, raising visors.
And if you're just now joining us, you are tuned in to the NASA SpaceX Crew 7 mission. And the crew has just docked to the International Space Station. Hard capture has been confirmed. And the crew lifted off from Space Launch Complex 39A on Friday early morning at 12:27 a.m. Pacific Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. And about 30 hours later, they are now docked to the International Space Station.
Yeah, that docking of our 4 crew members coming at 6:16 a.m. Pacific Time.
Houston Station on the Big Loop, PMA ingress, step 1.1.
And Woody, we're not quite ready for that step yet. We'll let you know when we are.
I copy, standing by.
Again, those comms coming from Mission Control Houston, the Capcom there, speaking with Woody Hoberg aboard the International Space Station, who's been monitoring the approach and arrival of Dragon, as well as the pressurization at the vestibule, the hatch opening that we'll see over the next couple of hours. Docking came this morning at 6:16 a.m. Pacific Time, 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time, as the spacecraft and the International Space Station were flying over Australia. We've again seen completion of soft capture as well as of hard capture.
And on the Big Loop, docking sequence is complete. Dragon, welcome, Vilkom, Yokoso, Dobro Aja Lovat to the International Space Station.
SpaceX, ISS from Dragon on the Big Loop. Thank you so much. I had to keep reminding myself this is not just a dream. Thank you to the entire SpaceX team, to those who worked on the Falcon 9, on our Dragon, and even on preparing us, especially our training lead, Paul Weiss. We had to keep reminding ourselves that when we open that hatch, we're not walking out into the training center. I'll hand it over to Andy for a few words.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone at SpaceX as well, including everyone at our respective partner agencies for getting us this far. You know, this is the first step of the journey. The real mission begins now on board the International Space Station. We have a lot of exciting work ahead of us that we look forward to. And thank you to everyone at our agencies for preparing us. We look forward to getting ready.
This is Satoshi. It was just like a training session in Hawthorne, California, and I'd like to express my appreciation to NASA, ESA, CSA, Roscosmos, JAXA, and especially SpaceX for flying us safely to the International Space Station. Thank you.
Thanks all. It was exciting. Like my friend said, it was really, really close to what we have experienced during the training. We just had to remind ourselves that it's happening for real. Very excited, very happy to be on ISS. Looking forward to opening that hatch. Thanks all the agencies. Thanks Paul. Thanks the team. We're really excited to be here. Thanks SpaceX for this marvelous vehicle. Thanks.
And Dragon, SpaceX on the Big Loop, on behalf of SpaceX, we want to thank you for training with us, and it's been an honor and privilege to bring you to the station today. Ground will be enabling our hardline power and communication connections. You are go to DOF suits per 4.012, and we're going to be taking cameras external.
SpaceX Dragon copies all. We'll step into 4.012 suit docking and audio configuration.
And some awesome words from the core, our core here, Shiva Bharavaj, speaking in every language to the crew, which was pretty awesome, welcoming the crew to the International Space Station. The crew also saying some amazing, kind words. That was really awesome to hear. Now that Dragon has completed the docking sequence, the spacecraft must undergo a handful of checks before we will be able to open the hatch. The crew on board Dragon will now get a chance to get out of their suits before moving into hatch operations.
That's right, and things will begin picking up inside the station too as NASA's Woody Hoberg gets the hatch on the station side ready to be open, starts pressurizing that area known as the vestibule between the Dragon and station hatches. So with Dragon docked, that's going to do it for us here in Hawthorne, but our coverage for Crew 7 doesn't stop here. If you stay tuned, we'll have NASA's Sandra Jones in Houston continuing to walk you through the pressurization of that vestibule, the hatch opening as well.
We're going to toss it to Sandra at Mission Control Houston to take us through the vestibule pressurization and hatch opening when we'll see NASA astronauts Jasmine Mogbelli, Andreas Mogensen, Satoshi Furukawa, and Konstantin Borisov float into the International Space Station. But first, let's quickly recap how they got there. They suited up in the suit-up room and rode in the Teslas on the way to the pad to their launch site. They then ingressed the Dragon vehicle and lifted off from Kennedy Space Center at pad 39A at 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday morning. Stage 1 came back to land on landing zone 1, and Dragon separated from Falcon 9's second stage, and then the nose cone deployed, as well as we had a few major burns, 5 burns on Dragon to enable them to get to the International Space Station, and docking confirmed at 6:16 a.m. Pacific Time, 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, August 27th.
Yeah, so now that Crew 7 has arrived, we are looking ahead to the return of Crew 6. We'll be taking you along as Steve Bowen, Woody Hoberg, Sultan Al-Nayati, and Andrei Fedyayev return home after their long-duration stay aboard the station. Our teams are assessing return dates, which will be announced on nasa.gov, so be sure to tune in as NASA and SpaceX bring you live coverage every step of their journey. Also, be sure to follow SpaceX and NASA on social media for real-time updates. Thanks again for watching. Go NASA, go SpaceX, and go Crew 7 and Crew 6. Now sending it over to Sandra at the Johnson Space Center in Houston to continue sharing the mission as the crew prepares to board their home for the next 6 months, the International Space Station. For those of you watching on the SpaceX YouTube channel, please head over to NASA TV to follow the coverage live, and we'll see you soon.